Yes, there will be baseball. After a 99-day lockout, we now have a complete 162-game schedule starting with opening day on April 7th. To celebrate the return of baseball, we want to do a wow promotion, so here we go. The first 50 customers will get the full season of MLB, including the playoffs, for just over $3 per day. How much of a wow is this? MLB through the All-Star break is priced at $7.95, and through the World Series is priced at $1,095. But the first 50 customers can get MLB through the World Series for $6.99. No coupon is needed, and this comes out to just over $3 per day. Once we hit 50 redemptions, the super early bird discount will come down, and the lowest possible price to lock in baseball will no longer be available. So act fast before you get shut out on our biggest price drop ever.
We are live, and it is Wednesday, March 30th. WagerTalk Today, live, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, every Monday through Friday right here on WagerTalk TV. And, of course, archived 24/7, 365 for your viewing pleasure, and also available audio version on your favorite podcast app. And just a quick reminder, keep this great content free on a daily basis here. Do us a couple quick favors. Take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and hit the thumbs up, the like button as well. If you're feeling extra sassy, leave us some comments below. We appreciate those as well. I am Steve Merril, joined by Teddy Covers for this great Wednesday show. And Teddy, we got a loaded show today on Wednesday. We're going to start off with one of my favorites, Kelly in Vegas / Kelly in Florida. Kelly, where's Waldo? Where's Kelly? We'll find out here in a few moments. Also, big game breakdown from you in between the other guests. We got Phoenix and Golden State, a nice NBA big game breakdown. Also have Tony Mejia. He's going to look at a couple games as well. Heat, Celtics, Hawks, Thunder. And then we finish it off with Adam Trigger from WagerTalk.com as well. And Adam's quite simply going to look at the Final Four, both games for Saturday, Final Four, Villanova, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina. So some great NBA and college hoops on Wednesday's show. But before we get to all of that, Teddy Covers, did you learn anything last night on Tuesday?
Somehow or other, we find something to learn just about every night, Steve. Even last night, when basically I slept through it. I've been dealing with COVID now for more than a week. Still slept 14 hours last night. And even with all that, I'm still running really hot, man. 58-29 all sports since the last week of February. 94% return on investment for the clients during that span. 24 winning days and 4 pushes over the last 31. Only 33 losing days in a month. This isn't about bragging about what kind of a good streak I'm on, even though I'm on COVID. The issue I want to talk about at the top is how do you come down from a hot streak? Because, look, I've been running really good for a really long time. I know it's not going to go on forever. All right? You can't be red hot forever. But the one thing I've learned over the years is that when you go on a hot streak, get a whole bunch of new clients, the last thing you want to do is end a hot streak by going ice cold. You want to ease out, 50-50. You don't want an 0-10 or a 2-12. You want to slow down and break comfortably and cautiously. Sometimes easier said than done. But frankly, as you're rolling, you don't want to worry about the end of the street. You just want to keep doing what you're doing. Right now, that's what I'm trying to do, Mr. Merril. What about you? What did you learn last night?
Well, let's talk about hot streaks, because this is something that in my 26 years I've dealt with as well. And I think, first of all, the problem is that people even look at streaks, and obviously we talk about them because that's what people want to hear. But there really is no way to predict a hot or cold streak. And sometimes, you are seeing things well. Sometimes you're just catching some breaks. And normally when you're on a nice run, the close games are going your way, right? And when things aren't going well, you're losing a lot of those close games. But what I'll say is you could hit 65, 70%. You could cool off and still be profitable over the next 10, 20 games and hit 54, 55%. So it's, people jump on cold cappers thinking they're due, or they jump on hot cappers thinking they can't get cold. It's just not the way to do it. Just play consistently all year long, every day, and don't, and live through the streaks, good and bad. And that's why money management is so important. But look, Teddy, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say, just because he's not feeling well, he is handicapping well. 24-7 NBA run, 58-29 all sports. And, Prez goes on vacation. He still wins. A lot of people think that, you're in the office grinding 12, 14 hours a day. A lot of this is systemized for us. And that's why over the last 10, 15 years, I've really tried to systemize what I do on a daily basis so that the streaks, come and go as they do, but you don't overthink it.
Well, I mean, I'm grinding away. Don't make no mistake about it. It's not a situation where the run that I've been on is based. Sure, I've had more than my fair share of close wins. Absolutely, that's what it takes to be hot. To be red hot for a month, more than a month now, you got to be doing some things right, no question. You have to be lucky. You have to be good. But the bigger issue I've had, because again, you've been doing this as long as you and I, Steve, have been doing it, and it's not like runs automatically happen, but sometimes the runs happen. But the key to me, after all these years, the key is how do the runs end? Because you don't want the run to end where all your clients just get buried because you just went from red hot to ice cold. You're trying to ease out of it. At this stage, I'm not trying to ease anything. I'm just trying to keep doing what I'm doing. See if we can bring another winning report home tonight. That's what's going on over here.
Yeah, well, I'll finish up by saying I do think that's a good point. You want to do what you've been doing, right? And sometimes people get extra hot. They're playing 2 or 3 games a day, and then all of a sudden they load up on 7 or 8 because they think they can't lose. That's what you're saying. That's when it can get kind of ugly when you have a 1-7 night, and vice versa. The bigger mistake, in my opinion, is when that you're running cold. You're doing 2 or 3 games a day, and then you try to get it all back in 1 or 2 days, and you go 0-7 or 0-8. You never want to chase whether it's casinos, sports betting, the investment, financial markets. Scared money never wins, Kelly Stewart. That's something my father told me 30 years ago. Scared money never wins. It's a great saying. And some other good ones too. Always walk away with something. Always walk away with something from the casino is a good advice as well. But what are your thoughts on hot streaks, Kelly? You've had some over your years.
College football, college basketball, no, not this year, college basketball, but for the most part, NFL even too, I really focus on what my strengths are. And when I'm running hot, I keep doing exactly what I was doing. But as Teddy said, when you start running cold, time to back off, being really selective. That's actually what I'm doing this year in the NBA. I usually don't get a chance to start NBA until after the All-Star break because I am so busy with several other sports. But that's just kind of my best advice is take what you're good at and limit your bets. If you try to, like you said, bet 7 or 8 games, the wheels might fall off. Hey, you might go 7-0. But it's a little dangerous territory for me. I try to be a lot more disciplined than I was in Vegas during March Madness.
Well, how did March Madness go for you? So what are your thoughts on the tournament? I want to look at some NBA with you, but what have been your thoughts on the tournament so far?
I tweeted this, I think like mid-February. I'm like looking at this tournament. I'm like, this is going to be so chalky. Like, I'm going to hate this. This is going to suck. Yeah, there were some fun upsets. There were some surprises like St. Peter's. But for the most part, I'm kind of bummed. This is like a bunch of blue blood schools. Whether you actually think Villanova is or isn't is up for debate. I would have loved to have seen a smaller school get in there, but it is what it is. I think that we're going to see an exciting Final Four and an exciting national championship game on Monday.
Do you have any thoughts on the two games themselves, Kel, real quick? Right now, I'm looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing Kansas pretty much 4.5 now across the board, total 133 against Villanova. Duke, -4 everywhere, total 151 against North Carolina. Any quick thoughts, initial thoughts on the 2 championship games for Saturday?
Teddy, these unders have just been crushing lately. And so that's where my initial thought process goes to look. I don't love either side, obviously with Villanova, with significant injuries to a couple of their starters, especially Moore. I talked to a good friend, Kenny White. He said he was worth 2.5 points. Looks like it's built into the line. This is a KU team that I was raised to despise, if you will. But KU looks like they will advance. And as far as the Duke-North Carolina game goes, I think it's a toss-up. I would love to take the points here and say, yeah, I think North Carolina can keep it close. These two teams face each other all the time, just never in the tournament. There's crazy headlines. I kind of have a slight feeling, and I said this against, I believe it was Texas Tech, that, hey, look, Duke's going to go and win the whole damn thing. It just seems like it's just one of those storybook years for Coach K. And while I don't like to take those storylines into account as far as my betting goes, I also wonder if he may get some extra whistles in the Final Four against North Carolina. As I mentioned, I'll probably be on both unders, but I'll make sure to tweet that out if I do get to the window.
Yeah, and Kelly, we saw both NIT semifinal unders move 3 to 4 points yesterday early. The first one soared over. The second one barely stayed under. In fact, they didn't score hardly the last couple minutes to keep it under. But we did see a lot of money coming to the NIT Final Four unders. We'll see how that plays out for Saturday for the NCAA Final Four. Let's talk some NBA. Our boy Ralph Michaels mentioned this actually on the show yesterday, and then he tweeted it out. The Brooklyn Nets failed to cover again as a home favorite. Now 1-18 run, even though they've got Kyrie back. So props to Ralph Michaels. Yeah, well, that trend is done. You know now that Ralph's put that out there.
It's not done. It cashed last night.
You don't think it's done?
It cashed the
we
game
definitely have a
before, and the
catalyst.
game before, and the game been riding it. Like,
yeah, I know, but I know Kyrie's been back now a little bit, but you figure with him back, there is a catalyst change there. But they didn't cover last night. They won by 7. Well, let me ask you, Teddy, what's your thoughts on that? You think it'll continue to work? There's no difference now?
I will continue to bet against the Nets at home until proven otherwise. Period.
I got you.
You know, and again, they're laying 14 last night. All right, it's not like the markets have significantly adjusted to Brooklyn's failures in this particular role. The markets have gone, oh, we don't care. Oh, we don't care. Oh, look, somebody else is back for the Nets. Let's bump them up even higher. You know, the markets don't seem the broader markets have paid zero attention to this trend. Zero. And I still think that there's money to be made betting against Brooklyn at home.
Yeah, and one thing, when we see runs like this in sports, it's usually a very public team. They're still favored to win the conference at a lot of sports books, even though they're not technically even in the playoffs. And as you said, Teddy, they won by 7, but they were a 14-point favorite. So as far as the Nets care, they care about winning, So there again, it's just inflated lines is why they're not covering. One team that is covering, Kelly, our producer Robert for the NBA tip-off show every day at 4:15 Eastern right here on WagerTalk TV, is a Houston Rocket lover. They've now gone 3-2 straight up, 4-1 ATS their last 5. Granted, the 3 wins are against the Wizards and back-to-back against Portland, the only team worse than them in the league, perhaps. But hey, look, the Rockets are playing good basketball. They're covering some spreads. Does it continue tonight? They're a home dog against another questionable team. Sacramento just 11-26 on the road, yet the Kings are a 2.5-point favorite, Kelly.
Yeah, it's gross. You want to lay points with the Kings on the road? I mean, as I mentioned, full disclosure, I just started doing NBA just a couple of weeks ago. Started to try to play catch up, if you will, after the All-Star break. And what I'm looking for here is some of those grimy, gross teams that nobody wants to bet on. Go figure. I'm looking for those ugly favorites, those short home underdogs. And so that's what you're going to get from me. If you guys are tailing my NBA, you can get a lot of the same data that I'm using from Ralph Michaels' stat sheet that he puts out every single day on his Twitter page. It's also on his WagerTalk.com page. So the reason why I'm taking the Rockets here is not a necessarily bet on the Rockets. Yes, they've looked great as of late, at least in terms against the spread. But I'm betting against the Kings because I'm sorry, this is a Sacramento Kings team that I haven't been impressed with, and albeit I haven't been impressed with the Rockets either, but I just don't think they deserve to be a road favorite here. I'm going to take the points with the Rockets at home. Hopefully they can get the win and not do what the Wizards did to me last night, and that was fail to show up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so that has to be a concern with the Houston Rockets. But I want to talk about Sacramento for a minute because I know they just got bombed in Miami the other night, a Heat team that had a little something to prove and came out and proved it. But prior to that, we saw them take Phoenix to overtime, lose by only 3. We saw them beat Indiana on the road. We saw them beat Orlando on the road. It's a Kings team, I should say, that has definitely played some better basketball in recent weeks. Does that concern you here against a Rockets team that's, defense optional?
Brian Leonard and I used to argue back in the day, Teddy. I don't know if you remember when we were in studio in Vegas about whether I thought the bookmakers set up trap lines, right? And he said, bookmakers don't trap you. And I said, that's not what John Murray told me. While they do or they don't can still be up for debate. But this looks like an absolute trap of a line. And that's what I mentioned. I'm going to get down in the muck. I'm going to have some really ugly bets. I'm going to have bet some teams that I promise you are going to get blown out. But we're going to find some of those underdogs that maybe are sizable underdogs at home, maybe even on the road that have a chance to win. I mean, these are still professional athletes. And this is where the NBA gets really tricky, right? It's trying to navigate when a team is on and when a team is off. You just nailed it with the Nets. The Nets right now don't care about covering. And yet the markets haven't adjusted. If we're gonna find those tricky trends here, we're gonna ride them till the wheels fall off. But I will be on the Houston Rockets tonight against this scrappy Kings team. But I'm just not sure that this line is not just begging for Kings money against a Rockets team that people are already starting to say it just cashed it in already for the season. And while they might be cashing it in here in the next few weeks or so, I don't think they've cashed it in just yet.
So I want to ask you real quick, Kelly, because you really think that like a late March game between Sacramento and Houston, they're worried about public money? There's a trap here? I don't understand that thought process. Explain it to me, because it's like this is not a public game. They're not public teams. No one's paying any attention to this game except for the pros. Why would we worried? Why would we even be thinking about a trap line in this spot? I can understand maybe if it's a national TV game or something like that, but these are two nothing teams playing that no one's paying any attention to. In this line, they're just putting power rating A, power rating B, and sticking it up there.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point, Teddy. Not a ton of public action is going to probably come in on this one, but I do always love to chat with those public bettors, right? I'm friends with a ton of guys that bet, and every morning I've been asking a group of guys, I'm like, so what line looks like, just the easiest game on the board? And the guys text me back, Sacramento this morning. So that actually is what caused me to pay a little bit more attention to this one. As I mentioned, several guys are kind enough to share their NBA power ratings with me. You can also get them from Ralph Michaels. This game looks like it's just a little too much juice for those Kings while they may get away with a win. I think that we're going to see a little bit more effort from the Rockets here at home. But you're right, Teddy. In all fairness, this is not going to be a pros versus Joes type game because the Joes are not going to probably want to get involved.
Yeah, I've always heard the trap lines thing too, and I do radio and TV shows. And I don't think they set trap lines, but you guys touched on what I've always said is that the public traps themselves, right? And it all comes down to the line being out of whack because the betting action is probably out of whack. And that's what bottom line is. And as you all know, I love to fade the public with my NFL video every week. And Kelly, one thing that jumps out to me is when the public is on an 11-26 road favorite, and that's Sacramento tonight. And the Houston Rockets, by the way, exactly 11-26 straight up at home this year. So that was Robert's Houston Rockets. Do you dare take Andy Lang's Indiana Pacers now as a home underdog, catching almost double digits? They're about a 9.5-point home dog against Denver on the road tonight. That's an early game at 7 Eastern.
I'm a Denver Nuggets fan, if you will. I grew up in Kansas. We didn't have a professional team, so I grew up rooting for the Nuggets, and Dikembe Mutombo was my favorite player. So I do actually try to catch some Nuggets games from time to time. And I got an email this morning from the Denver Nuggets that said with last night's win, they made Nugget history. They've had the most road wins in a season, and they've just been playing their butts off. So I started looking at Ralph's stat sheet, and I start seeing how good have they really been playing on the road. As I mentioned, still trying to play catch up from college football, NFL, college basketball season. And the Nuggets have been doing really well on the road this year. And who hasn't been doing really well? That's right, the Indiana Pacers. They look atrocious. And not only do they look atrocious, they're just not covering games. And while I sometimes like to avoid those bad teams like this, I'm not sure the Nuggets are going to be able to go out and win this game by double digits. We know the Nuggets have a stellar offense by all means, but no Porter Jr. We've seen that 3-point shooting kind of dip down. I do think that we will see a tighter game here. Now, maybe the play is going to be for me to take the Pacers in the first half, and I will tweet that out if need be. But I'm looking at this Pacers team to keep it together for 4 quarters against a really solid Nugget squad in a case of just too many points.
So, Kel, I bet against Indiana the other night with the Hawks, and they gave up 132 on the heels of giving up 131 to the Raptors and 133 to the Grizzlies. All 3 of those opponents shot well over 50%. The opponent before them, Sacramento, shot well over 50% against Indiana. The Pacers aren't playing any defense. I mean, they're not even playing a semblance of defense. Does that concern you at this stage of the season against a really good offensive team like Denver? Or is it just too many points and, Indiana might lose this game by 6 or 8, but they're not going to lose it by doubles?
Yeah, I mean, that would be my ultimate goal is for them to lose by 6 or 8. I do think the Pacers' injuries have kind of caught up with them, but I think that's why everybody's rushing to back the Nuggets here. Now, again, this is the same one of those games, Teddy, that nobody's going to want to get involved in as far as the public goes. This is going to be the Sharps are going to either bet this or they're going to stay away. I think this does look like it has the potential to be a track meet. The Pacers' offense is still rocking and rolling we'll see how the Nuggets show up defensively tonight. But hey, track meet by all means. Points don't always become a premium when you start seeing these higher totals, but I do think the double digits here, if this one hits 10, which there is one, I believe, still floating around on the WagerTalk odds screen, I will be getting involved with the Pacers here.
It's Kelly Stewart. And Kelly, I'm pulling my Prez moment here because you got me looking at a USA map because I'm fascinated by the fact you're a Nuggets fan growing up in Kansas. But Colorado does touch Kansas. And I guess you didn't have the Oklahoma City Thunder, so maybe it would have been the Thunder otherwise nowadays. Did you all have local games? Was it Nuggets if you caught like local games there in your days?
So my sister actually married a guy from Denver. She's significantly older than me, so he was kind of like my older brother. And he, born and raised in Denver, that's why I'm a Broncos fan. My first NBA game I ever went to was at the Pepsi Center. Kind of was an Avs fan for a little bit, and that really quickly shifted over to my love for the Blackhawks. But that's a whole nother story for another day. But it is funny because growing up in Kansas, there was no teams. Everybody loved the Bulls, right? Late 90s, of course, who didn't love the Bulls? I, of course, loved the Celtics because I was a contrarian, even way back then. And then, of course, somebody bought me a Charlotte Hornets starter jacket at one point in time. So, of course, I had to be an Alonzo Mourning fan.
Awesome
when you're a kid, it kind of goes back and forth. But it is funny how I still get Denver Nuggets emails because I bought tickets maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Wasn't there the Kansas City Kings back in the day? Before they moved
Teddy.
to Sacramento?
It's not that old,
Yeah,
my goodness. She said her sister was
Kansas
older.
City in the 70s.
Yeah, I used
Her
to have Kansas
sister's
City
the
Kings
older one,
basketball
not
cards.
Kelly.
I remember that for sure.
Well, you have to remember, I'm also not a Chiefs fan. I'm also not a Royals fan. So even if that would have been the case, I was a Mitch Richmond fan. However, though, he went to K-State, and I actually have his Kings rookie card somewhere around this office.
Mitch Richmond was a great player back in the 90s. I remember him. And by the way, I've got a Georgetown dunk ball behind me. You might want that. You're like Mourning and Mutombo you've mentioned here on the show. The tallest human being I've ever seen in person still. I was at the McDonald's High School All-American game at the Capitol Center back in the early 90s. And Mutombo, I guess, was still at Georgetown, or maybe whenever he was there. And he walked by in the portal area like at halftime, and I walked by him. No. But he was the tallest human being I've ever seen. He's only like 7'1", maybe. I'm sure, there's bigger guys nowadays. But Kelly, what else you got going on? Not only at WagerTalk.com, Barstool Sports. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, that's it for these days. That's where I'm at. I was supposed to be headed to New Orleans for the Final Four this weekend, and I really screwed up and did not book a hotel room before everything was announced. And now I'm just like, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going. It's supposed to be rainy and crappy on Saturday anyway, so that was an extra little excuse for me not to travel. So right now, just hanging out. Like I said, I've got plenty of time to work on NBA. Hopefully, like you guys said, I don't think long, think wrong here to spend my little time capping my games. As I tweeted yesterday, you guys fade or follow. Again, just started doing NBA. I did work for NBA TV in the past, so I do know the NBA. But as I mentioned, it's just been a quick handicapping catch-up session. Thank you to Ralph. Thank you to Kenny White, everybody that shares all of their information with me. And we'll see if we can't pick some winners and have a profitable end to the NBA season.
Sounds good. And that's Kelly Stewart. You can find her on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. Find her at WagerTalk.com and Barstool Sports as well. Thank you to Kelly for joining us. And Teddy, keep the NBA talk rolling here. Let's look at another one. Suns Warriors big game breakdown. 30 seconds. Teddy covers.
Yes, there will be baseball. After a 99-day lockout, we now have a complete 162-game schedule starting with opening day on April 7th. To celebrate the return of baseball, we want to do a wow promotion, so here we go. The first 50 customers will get the full season of MLB, including the playoffs, for just over $3 per day. How much of a wow is this? MLB through the All-Star break is priced at $7.95, and through the World Series is priced at $1,095. But the first 50 customers can get MLB through the World Series for $6.99. No coupon is needed, and this comes out to just over $3 per day. Once we hit 50 redemptions, the super early bird discount will come down, and the lowest possible price to lock in baseball will no longer be available. So act fast before you get shut out on our biggest price drop ever.
time for today's big game breakdown. Let's go to the association out here on the West Coast tonight. Golden State and Phoenix on ESPN. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, we have seen some recent money for the Suns. This was about a half hour ago. Now we're looking at 4.5s across the board for Phoenix. Total sitting in the 222.5, 223 range right now as we speak. Two-way action on the total. We have seen a little bit of Suns money on the side. Excuse me. That could have been a lot worse. So, Warriors and the Suns. These two teams have met 3 times already this year. Golden State has won the last 2 after Phoenix won the first meeting between the two. The last time they met came on Christmas Day. Curry scored 33. Golden State shut down Devin Booker, and they won the game by 9. Since that meeting on Christmas Day, at the time, Golden State was a half game up in the Pacific Division. Since that time, the Suns 35-8, the Warriors 21-22. That's where these two teams are at right now. But I don't even think that's telling the true story. Okay? Because Phoenix right now is healthy as they've been all year. Okay? They've won 8 straight games. Chris Paul's back in the lineup. They've already clinched the best record in the NBA. They clinched home court advantage. All right? What does Golden State have to play for right now? Nothing, right? The markets are saying that with this relatively cheap line. Except for that, when you look at the quotes, look at Jay Crowder. You know, the motivation comes from last year, making it all the way to the finals and not achieving the main goal. That's the ultimate motivation. That's all you need. You want to get back there. You want a different story. I'm not getting any signs that Phoenix is about to lay down tonight against Golden State. Now, the Warriors are 21-22 in their last 43 ball games, sub 500 team. But most of that came with Curry in the lineup. Without Curry, and Curry's hurt now, obviously he won't be back till the postseason, they'd be getting bombed. They've won 1 game. And it came against a Heat team when Miami was in the midst of their slide. All right? This is a lottery team posing as a playoff team right now. Plus 4.5. I'm not interested. Phoenix is the better of these two teams by a wide margin. They're coming to play. Golden State isn't. Minus 4.5 is cheap. Give me that. Phoenix Suns, the best team in the NBA, the future NBA champs, minus 4.5 on the road at Golden State. There's your big game breakdown, sneeze included. Back to you, Mr. Merril.
Ooh, a little bonus big game breakdown, folks who were listening at the end there, as he gave you a futures play on the Phoenix Suns. They won the West last year, but lost in the finals to the Bucks. Teddy Covers says not only do they cover tonight, but they win the whole thing here in a few months. And don't forget, NBA playoffs are just a few weeks away for the next couple months. And I've said now for 20 plus years, and I say it again, I think if I had to pick, if I was on a desert island, Teddy, I mean, there's not as much volume like baseball, college hoops. There's more volume. I win more money in college hoops and baseball because of that. But if I had to maybe win percentage, if that was an indicator over like, say, 30 games on a desert island, if I had to set it and forget it, one sport to handicap, the NBA playoffs for me. It's been a consistent moneymaker for decades. Same situations work. And we talk about trap lines. And once again, there are really no such thing as trap lines, but the lines are adjusted for so many wrong reasons in these best of 7 series. The zigzag doesn't always work, but the concept works. And what do you think, Teddy? If you had to pick one sport over 30 games to play every year, and that's all you were allowed to play, what would be your sport?
Well, let me start with this. The zigzag doesn't work. Okay.
Right. No, I knew as I said that I was going to get you because we had that discussion last year.
Since the 90s. I went back and did a study and went through every game, and the zigzag would cost you money year after year after year after year after year after year. I mean, it's not a profitable concept. It hasn't been. You can find spots to use it, but there's too many mismatch series, especially first round. You know, the zigzag works a little bit more in the second and the third round than just in the first round. But if there was one sport, 30 games, whatever I'm running good at that moment, man, it's not like I don't look and say, all right, I'm a way better NFL capper, or I'm a way better college football capper, I'm a way better NBA capper, or a way better baseball capper, or college hoops, whatever it is. When I'm running good, I can beat the crap out of every one of those sports. All right. When I'm running bad, I can lose my ass in every one of those sports. So I would be very happy if I had a 30-game sample size, whatever the heck sport I'm running good in, let me keep running. And I could care which of the 5 sports it's in. Could care less.
Teddy covers, and I knew I was going to get him, Tony Mejia, when I said zigzag. And I even said, if you listen closely, I said the concept of it works. I didn't say it blindly works. And let me rephrase it even more accurately. The modified zigzag is what works, and it's playing Class A teams off losses and other. But the thing is with totals, a lot of times they'll adjust the total, as you know, Teddy, you know, Tony. I mean, there'll be a game that'll go over in game 1 or game 2, and they'll adjust the total higher 3 points for the next game. And maybe it was a completely misleading over where the teams are lights out from 3 or vice versa that could hit the back of the basket. It amazes me after, 80, 90 games, how the odds makers continue to move a line like 3 points just in the very next game between the same teams. But the zigzag definitely is priced in still, as you'll see a line adjusted a couple points just because the team lost a game. And that's another reason it does not blindly work, as Teddy said. Tony Mejia, you cover several different sports, but we're going to look at some NBA today. That's Tony Mejia from WagerTalk.com, or as you might have heard him on the basketball courts, T-Bird, when he was doing the three-point contest in Vegas. And by the way, folks, there are rumblings that we're going to be out there in August. So Tony is getting ready for that. He had only a couple weeks' notice for this one. He looked pretty good still. I can't imagine with 4 months' notice what he can do. And by the way, if you'd like to give Johnny Detroit the best birthday gift ever, it is Johnny Detroit's birthday. Everybody back at the office. Our fearless leader in Detroit. Once again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That'd be a great birthday gift for Johnny Detroit, who turns 30 today. He's a young gun. He turns 30. Tony, let's look at some NBA here on a Wednesday night. Teddy wants to disagree with that one as well. 32.
Doesn't turn 30?
Round it down a little. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm taking the over by decades.
The comedy is lost. Tony, the comedy is just lost on this man today. I swear. I know he's serious today. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to work with here. My goodness.
When zigzag was blindly working, that I mostly remember it in the past few years. It's been those college basketball games, like when they were trying to get them in during COVID, and they'd have two mediocre teams playing one another. The first team would win the first one, and the second team would always win the rematch. But beyond that, zigzag's an outdated theory.
Well, yeah, the home and home revenge angles is something I still use in the NBA. We talk about that a lot on NBA Tip-Off, and we still get some of those situations where, back-to-back games, different arenas, and you can look at the adjusted box scores there. It's kind of like a mini 2-game series. Tony, let's look at the NBA tonight. What's some stuff that jumps out to you? Let's talk Heat-Celtics. We haven't mentioned that game yet. One of the biggest games of the night here. These are two teams still vying for the number 1 seed in the East. Miami at Boston. Which way you go into this? Are the Heat starting to turn things around? They're basically tied for the Eastern Conference the last week or so, and they're still losing games, although they did get that big win against the Kings, as we talked about. They get a win tonight against Boston?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's what do you call it, a falling knife situation for you? It's still Miami?
Right.
Because they're still on the skids outside of beating the Kings, which everybody does, and Sacramento's playing without Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox right now. But the Heat were able to finally snap their skid by taking them out. They made a small lineup change with Max Strus replacing Duncan Robinson in the mix. Actually helped out Robinson, who somehow felt better coming off the bench, had a big game the other night. And from what Strus said after the win, he hasn't been promised a starting spot. It just was a feel thing for Eric Spoelstra, and we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, before that, they had lost to the Nets. They'd lost to the Knicks, the Warriors, the 76ers. So Miami certainly continues to struggle trying to find it just before the postseason. And Boston obviously has been the darling of the NBA over the last few months, but now playing without Robert Williams, who does so much for them on the defensive end and rebounding. The Time Lord really makes his money by eliminating others' mistakes and allowing Jaylen Brown to be more aggressive on the perimeter, improving the defense of Jason Tatum and making Al Horford's job easier. Now Horford becomes that primary catalyst on the defensive end inside. So we'll see how that works out for Boston. But I don't think that odds makers took his absence into consideration enough. We're coming off a situation where basically none of the Celtics regulars played against Toronto, and they still got the cover, almost got that win. I believe went to overtime. But this is their first true game with everybody in the mix and no Robert Williams. So I think Miami can take advantage of him, and I like taking the points, and I also like the over on this game because of the impact Williams' absence will have on that defense.
So, I mean, Miami's coming off a really ugly slide, a slide that made me question the Heat, and I was just dropping Miami in the power ratings every single night. And then they bounced back against Sacramento with a comfortable win and cover. And I'm trying to assess Miami right now. I found this Jimmy Butler quote, I think we got a little comfortable, expecting we were going to win every night. We have lapses at time, but I feel like we have a championship caliber team and we're clicking. We are tough to beat. And I agree with that assessment from Butler. Is this a spot where we might want to buy Miami right now off of that ugly skid where the markets may have devalued them a little bit? Because I know all I was doing was taking the Heat, slapping them down to my power ratings for a good week and a half. Is there value right now with Miami?
That's where I'm at on this one, Teddy. I think between having to replace Williams against a really two-way team in the Heat that can really lock down on the defensive end and also punish you from beyond the arc, this is a really tough spot for the Celtics. And then you mentioned Miami slide. They were playing a lot of tough teams, but they were also trying to work back Markieff Morris, who had come back finally from getting shoved in the back from Jokic. Victor Oladipo was back in the mix as well, and they were doing stuff with rotations. And not to mention, Jimmy Butler's fallen off a cliff offensively. The numbers don't lie there. He's been terrible late in games. They missed Tyler Hero in for a couple of those games and need him in those situations to potentially emerge as that team's closer late in games because Jimmy Butler has been so inefficient. And you didn't get the best out of Bam Adebayo there for a while. So this is a really talented Heat squad that's still number one in the Eastern Conference, despite that skid. So yes, certainly, I think this is a great spot for them, considering they know the Celtics so well, and they've been destroyed by Boston in both meetings this year, 95-78 and 122 to 92 most recently on January 31st. This is a new look Heat squad and Celtics squad from that standpoint because of the injuries and some additions for Miami. So it's a spot for Spo to be like, hey, I don't have to tell you guys much. We're going into TD Garden. Let's galvanize.
Yeah, and by the way, Miami is still half a game in the lead of the Eastern Conference. Yes, they're only fifth right now in the FanDuel future odds to win the conference. So talk about downgrading their power ratings. Obviously, the odds makers have downgraded them as well, even though they're right now winning the conference. They're only fifth to win it right now at 5-1. Phoenix, by the way, has an 8.5 game lead over Memphis to win the West. As Teddy said earlier, he thinks they'll win the whole thing this year. Let's look at a little less high-profile game, Tony, and that's Atlanta is about a 2.5-point road favorite. I'm sorry, more than that. Atlanta on the road as a favorite, 12.5. I was saying 2.5. I missed the first digit. 12.5 at Oklahoma City. I was going to say everyone's out for the Hawks, and they're only a 2.5-point favorite. OKC obviously is a bad team, straight up 22-53, but they've been a great team against the spread of 48-25 now. I mean, the biggest dichotomy of any straight up versus ATS record. So see Atlanta winning this game probably, but do the Thunder once again keep it close and cover as a double-digit home dog?
And they potentially can. And 7 straight covers for the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. Still no Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, nobody that of any significance in that lineup of guys that you've heard of and probably been impressed about. Darius Bazley out, Lou Dort out, Josh Giddey, who's had such a nice rookie season. He's been shelved for the last few weeks. So this is a team that's getting it done with Aaron Wiggins and Alexei Pokusevsky, Teo Maledon, Vic Krejci, who just came over. I mean, these are guys, not household names. These are guys that I barely watched play. Olivier Sarr is playing major minutes. He last played at Wake Forest in college, started his career at Kentucky, kind of was a washout there in terms of disappointment. So these are G League players, but they're really getting it done. The over is 14-4-1 in Oklahoma City's last 19 games. So they're still managing to score, but they can't stop anybody. And that's what gives me a little pause. I think that the line's slightly inflated. So if I had to play it, it would be with the Thunder. I had it at 10.5 because, you really don't want to be laying double digits with the Atlanta Hawks on the road. But I mean, the roster disparity is what it is. I think the safest play is on the high side. You've got Trae Young's one appearance in Oklahoma City, obviously is a Sooner. So he'll be out there. He'll be motivated. That offense should be going. And if guys like Krejci or Pokashevsky get hot from the perimeter, you have another case of a high-scoring game that the Thunder play decently in and lose by 8-10.
It's Tony Mejia, WagerTalk.com. And Tony, of course, covers college hoops as well. He'll be on Friday on the college basketball tip-off show at 1:45 Eastern to look at the Final Four, Duke, UNC, Villanova, Kansas. So we'll get some college hoops from Tony on Friday. In the meantime, some great NBA insight. You've got a big 5% NBA best bet for Wednesday night at WagerTalk.com. Tony, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, come see me. We've got a 5% best bet on Cavs Mavs. I'll have some other plays in there. This is a big night for spots, and it's one of those nights where you're either going to be dead wrong or look pretty good, because some of these numbers stand out to me as being way off. So we'll see. We'll see if I can knock out 5%, get back on track, because my Miami and Kansas over was DOA thanks to the U the other day, and I don't like losing 5%. I rarely do, and I don't lose 2 in a row. So we'll look to get back on track tonight.
It's Tony Mejia, WagerTalk.com. He covers college and pro hoops. He also does a lot of soccer, and he's got a free soccer play. So if you'd like a free soccer play, on his page right now as well at WagerTalk.com. And we're going to keep it.
Right.
CONCACAF. That's I forget how you pronounce it. There we go. So, yeah, Tony's got some soccer as well, a little Honduras, Jamaica. I know Teddy's been looking for that game all day and looking for a line on that one. But, yeah, we got that at WagerTalk.com as well. And another guy covers several sports, but we're going to look at the college hoops now because we saved the Final Four for last. And that's Adam Trigger from WagerTalk.com. Going to look at both big games this Saturday, Adam, and let's dig right into it. First one on the board is Villanova, Kansas, and, of course, a huge injury. You hate to see this happen. It's a 6-point win. They got 30 seconds to go, and one of their best players goes down, and he is out. And this is Justin Moore, who's second on the team in three-point attempts, basically the second-best three-point shooter. And as Kelly said earlier, the odds makers said Kenny White said he's worth about 2.5 points. It looks like that's what they've adjusted the line, because I think this line would have been about a basket. Now it's 4.5. So your thoughts on this game, and I guess more importantly, your thoughts on the injury and how to play it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I like Kansas here, and the injury kind of hurts my ability to bet this game, in my opinion, because it's definitely baked into the line. So, I mean, if you like Kansas, you're going to need a better reason than Justin Moore is out to bet Kansas, in my opinion. But I think I would have rather taken Kansas short, like -1.5, -2 with Justin Moore available, than laying the 4.5, knowing Jay Wright has a week to prepare and figure out how to game plan, not having him. The issue for Villanova here, in my opinion, is going to be depth. Taking Moore out of the lineup really leaves them with 5 guys. You're going to move Caleb Daniels into the starting rotation, and that leaves guys on the bench that have produced little to nothing all season for Villanova. So I still like Kansas to win this game. I haven't bet this yet. I'm looking at Kansas. I'm wondering if maybe it comes down. I've seen some 4s pop up in some places. I'm going to give this out for free regardless. So check back with me on our Hustle show on Saturday morning, Wager Talk TV, where I'll definitely give out anything I'm playing in the Final Four. The way I'm looking toward Kansas, I haven't bet it yet. I do think the depth's going to be an issue. You got Kansas has Remy Martin coming off the bench. They've got Coleman Lands down the bench, is like the 8th or 9th guy. He was a starter at his last stop last year. So I just think Kansas has superior depth. I think they could struggle maybe a little bit with the pace of the game, but ultimately I think they'll wear Villanova down. And I've just got to figure out whether I think they can do it by 4 or more. But I'm definitely leaning toward Kansas winning this game, and I'll have to see if I can jump in and lay the number.
So when it comes to the NCAA tournament so far, all right, and obviously we have still 3 games left in this tournament, but to reach the Final Four, it's not close. Kansas had the easiest schedule by far. Texas Southern, Creighton, they didn't cover. Providence, who was an overachieving team that the wise guys hated all year, in a Miami squad that was predicted to finish, 12th in the ACC before the campaign started. So they faced some overachievers, but not necessarily the top flight talent that they're going to see on Villanova, even without Moore in the lineup. And certainly we look at the Wildcats and who they've knocked off. The last two teams they beat, Michigan and Houston, is better than anyone that Kansas has beaten in this tournament. Does that concern you at all? Strength of opposition so far here in the Big Dance?
It doesn't, Teddy, and I guess the main reason it doesn't is I really feel like, especially when you go into a new week, so the NCAA tournament is set up so you kind of play 2 games quickly, take a break, 2 games quickly, take a break. I think it's more matchup than anything at this point. I don't think it matters per se that Kansas has had like a slightly easier road than Villanova, because I really think it comes down to this matchup and Kansas against Villanova, Villanova no longer having more, and what these teams are going to do across 40 minutes on Saturday night. So for me here, Kansas, in my opinion, is the better team. I really do think we're on course for a Kansas-Duke final. We'll talk about Duke, North Carolina in a minute. But yeah, like I said, right now I haven't bet it yet. I lean toward Kansas minus the points. I just think their depth is going to wear Villanova down. But there are some factors. Villanova does some things well, specifically getting to the foul line, slowing down the play, which I think could be the biggest issue for Kansas, having to play at that slow pace. But ultimately, I just don't see where the bench production is going to come from for Villanova. And I think you're going to need a little bit more than just the scoring from your 5 starters. Not to mention Colin Gillespie's still dealing with a little bit of an injury. I think it's just going to be just not enough for Villanova to get over the hump and get to the national championship game. And for that reason, I think the number is still short enough where it would be Kansas or nothing for me.
It's Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. And don't forget, he covers multiple sports as well, as he's got an Asian baseball show that's going to be starting actually tomorrow with Tokyo Brandon. Every Monday and Thursday, an Asian baseball show, and that starts live tomorrow, Thursday. So check that out here on Wager Talk TV. And Adam, in the last couple minutes here, let's look at that Duke, North Carolina, the 3rd time as a charm. They split the regular season meetings. One of our viewers on Twitter asked about how hedging a future bet. Jerry asked how you would hedge a future bet. And, of course, that's intriguing to me as well, because Carlos Boozer, who we had on the college basketball tip-off show a few weeks ago, of course, had Duke at 12-1 at PointsBet, 50,000 to win 600,000. I'd asked him before that first game was played, would he consider hedging maybe if they met Gonzaga, in the round of 16, the round of 8, or the Elite 8 rather. Duke is now plus 160 versus 12-1. So a huge hedge opportunity. Your thoughts on that and just this game in general?
Yeah, let's start with the future. I'm not a huge fan of hedging when you have an ideal position. Okay, right now, if you have Duke to win it, you have an ideal position. You're 12-1. You're sitting there right now. It's plus 150. So I don't want to give back any of that value. I would say if you absolutely have to hedge and you do like North Carolina in this matchup, but what I would do is just put something on North Carolina plus the points. At least you're sort of, giving yourself a middle to potentially hit both. And then if North Carolina comes out and wins the game, you've got your hedge, and maybe Duke wins by within the number, and then you cash a ticket and you still have your bet going to the final. But I'm not huge on hedging, especially when you're that far ahead. So if I have 12-1 on Duke and it's plus 160, because you have to remember, it's not going to be a true hedge at the semifinal round, right? Like, even if you were to put something on North Carolina, I might have did that wrong in my head. I gotta rethink that now.
No, you're right.
Anyway,
you're exactly right. Yeah.
Right, because if Duke comes out and wins, you would still have to hedge them again in the final. I don't know if you had something like 60-1. You might start to think about hedging now. 12-1, I think I'd rather just ride out my position. And I'll just go into my handicap of this game. I like Duke in this spot. I think the fact that this game is so hyped up right now is giving more steam to the North Carolina side. In my opinion, just eye test in general, Duke from the end of that Michigan State game on has looked like your national champion. At least in my opinion, they've played as probably better than anyone so far in this tournament. I think I would take Texas Tech and Arkansas against the number, against the other 3 teams that were still in this tournament. So you want to talk about a team that sort of had to go through it, Duke beating Texas Tech and Arkansas to get to this point, whereas North Carolina beat a banged-up Baylor team, a UCLA team that I always thought was a fade in this tournament, and then St. Peter's from the MAC conference. So definitely you want to talk about playing a tougher schedule, battle-tested. I think that favors Duke. But in my opinion here, there's I just have a disparity between these two two teams. I think there's some revenge here for Duke getting blown out in the final game of the regular season. You go back to the first meeting between these two teams, Duke ran them off the floor. And I'll just close with this. I think from that point when they got blasted by North Carolina in the final game of the regular season, I've seen more, in my opinion, I've seen more of an improvement from Duke. Whereas North Carolina, I think, has gotten to this point by default. I actually think this number is a little bit short because of all the hype, making this into like this massive sort of unbelievable game. I actually don't know that it's going to be a great game. I think Duke could kind of, run away with this similar to the way they did against Arkansas. So I think Duke -4 is a decent bet here. Again, check back with me on the hustle on Saturday morning on Wager Talk TV, where I'll lock in anything I'm going to play. But I'm definitely leaning toward the Duke side here.
That's Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. And my quick thoughts on hedging is that, you don't give up an edge unless you, for some reason, like North Carolina a lot here. But I would say from an emotional hedge, maybe lock up your initial investments. If you bet 100 at 12-1, hedge 100 so you break even and you don't kick yourself if it doesn't work out. But I love the UNC plus the points on the hedge because you could catch a middle and win both, win the few futures and pick up another unit on the point spread. That's Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. Adam, what you got going on for Wednesday and the rest of this week at WagerTalk.com?
Yep. So tonight's a pass for me. But I did post my MLB/KBO early season special. You mentioned my show with Tokyo Brandon. We have our first episode up. Our first live show will go Thursday. We're going to do that on Monday and Thursdays for KBO throughout the season. And right now on my page, you can get KBO for free with the purchase of my MLB season, which is already up there at a discount. Since the beginning of the 2020 season, I've hit 56.4% across all baseball. So looking forward to another good baseball season, and check that out on my page now.
Sounds good. Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. And don't forget, check out that Asian baseball show live tomorrow on Thursday right here on Wager Talk TV and archived, of course, 24/7 for your viewing pleasure. And that's going to do it for Wednesday, Teddy. We'll be back. We'll do it again tomorrow on Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks to Kelly Stewart, Tony Mejia, Adam Trigger. Thank you, Teddy Covers. I'm Steve Merril. Teddy, take us home.
This is an easy take-home. Enjoy the games tonight, and good luck. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, there will be baseball. After a 99-day lockout, we now have a complete 162-game schedule starting with opening day on April 7th. To celebrate the return of baseball, we want to do a wow promotion, so here we go. The first 50 customers will get the full season of MLB, including the playoffs, for just over $3 per day. How much of a wow is this? MLB through the All-Star break is priced at $7.95, and through the World Series is priced at $1,095. But the first 50 customers can get MLB through the World Series for $6.99. No coupon is needed, and this comes out to just over $3 per day. Once we hit 50 redemptions, the super early bird discount will come down, and the lowest possible price to lock in baseball will no longer be available. So act fast before you get shut out on our biggest price drop ever.